The story begins in a quiet Melbourne suburb. A 15-year-old girl named Rachel Barber lives with her parents and two younger sisters. Rachel is a talented dancer. She spends her days at a prestigious dance school, dreaming of a future on stage. To her family, she is a shy but loving daughter. To her friends, she's a bright, promising teenager. In early 1999, her life seems full of potential. She met a new boyfriend from dance class. She talks about buying new shoes. She plans for a future that feels certain and bright. But Rachel's world is not as private as she believes. Someone is watching her life with intense focus. This person is not a stranger. She's a family friend named Caroline Robertson. Caroline is 5 years older than Rachel. For years, she has been a trusted babysitter in the Barber home. She knows the family routine. She knows Rachel's habits. To the Barbers, Caroline is a quiet, reliable presence. They have no reason to doubt her. They have no way of knowing about the thoughts filling Caroline's mind. In her private journals, Caroline writes of deep unhappiness. She hates her own appearance. She feels like a misfit. She believes her life has no value. And as she babysits, she begins to compare her life to Rachel's. This comparison starts to change from simple jealousy into something else. It becomes a fixed idea. She starts to think about becoming Rachel. This thought, written in secret, will set a terrible chain of events into motion. Caroline Robertson's own life felt empty. She worked a desk job and came home to a small apartment. She had almost no friends. Her journals from the time show a person trapped in her own mind. She drew pictures of herself she hated. She wrote long lists of ugly words about herself. She felt completely alone. At the same time, her fascination with Rachel Barber grew stronger. It was more than just envy. Caroline began to create a detailed fantasy in her writings. In this fantasy, Rachel Barber did not exist. Instead, Caroline could live as someone new. She started to plan how to make this fantasy real. This was not a sudden idea. In 1997, she took the first concrete step. She lied to Rachel's family. She said she needed Rachel's birth date for an art project. Using this information, she applied for an official copy of Rachel's birth certificate. For Caroline, it was a key piece for her plan. She also took bags of Rachel's old clothing. These actions happened while she still smiled and acted normally around the Barbers. The family noticed nothing wrong. They had moved to a different suburb, but Caroline stayed in touch. She kept the connection alive. Her plan needed Rachel's trust, so she maintained the friendly, familiar relationship. All the while, her journal entries turned darker. They moved from sad thoughts about herself to specific notes about Rachel. She wrote about using drowsy powder. She wrote about a toxic cloth. She wrote about an army bag and dumping something far away. The writings were a blueprint for a crime, but they were hidden away in her apartment, seen by no one. The pleasant young woman the Barbers knew was a complete mask. Behind it was a person plotting a murder. The trap was set with a phone call. On the last Sunday of February 1999, Caroline called Rachel at home. They spoke for a long time. Caroline presented an offer that sounded perfect to a teenager. She said she was helping with a confidential psychology study. They needed someone like Rachel. For just an hour of her time answering questions, she would be paid $100 cash. There was one strict rule. Rachel could not tell anyone. Not her parents, not her boyfriend, not her best friend. Secrecy was essential for the study's results. Rachel, a trusting 15-year-old, agreed. She saw Caroline as a family friend, almost an older sister. The idea of easy money for a secret project felt exciting. The next Monday, Rachel went to dance school as usual. She was in a good mood. She whispered to friends that she had a secret job after class that would pay her a lot of money. She pointed to a pair of shoes in a shop window. She said she would buy them tomorrow with her new money. Her boyfriend felt worried about her secrecy, but Rachel assured him it was fine. She said she was meeting a female friend. After class ended, Rachel walked to a tram stop with her dance bag. She said goodbye to her friends. A witness saw her get on the tram. She was not alone. Caroline Robertson was with her. They rode together to Caroline's neighborhood. They got off the tram and walked the short distance to Caroline's apartment building. Rachel Barber, carrying her dreams of new shoes and dance routines, walked inside. She believed she was about to earn some money. She had no idea she had walked directly into a plan that had been written down in a journal many months before. Inside the apartment, the plan unfolded. Caroline had prepared pizza. She had also bought alcohol, but Rachel was not interested in drinking. Later, Caroline would tell a psychologist that she suggested a relaxation exercise. She asked Rachel to think of happy things. For a moment, Caroline claimed she almost changed her mind. But then she thought about how much trouble she would be in for luring Rachel there. She decided she had to continue. She picked up the cord from her telephone. She walked behind Rachel. She placed the cord around the teenager's neck, and then she strangled her. The violent act was the final step in her long-held fantasy. Afterward, Caroline had to deal with the reality of what she had done. Rachel's body was in her small flat. She dragged it into her bedroom wardrobe. She closed the door. For the next 2 days, life in the apartment was a strange performance of normalcy. Caroline went to work the next morning. Her boss said she looked very pale and unwell. She left work early. She called her father. She called a coworker repeatedly, demanding money she was owed. She needed cash. All her actions were now focused on the next phase, getting rid of the body and disappearing. On the second day, she called a taxi. She told the driver she had a large sculpture to move. She had wrapped Rachel's body in a rug and placed it in a large duffel bag. The taxi drove to her father's rural property. Caroline took the bag to a secluded spot. She dug a shallow grave and buried Rachel there. She then returned to the city. She went back to work the following day. She even spoke to coworkers about a friend who was missing. She suggested the friend was just a runaway. Her calm behavior was a shield, hiding the terrible truth of what was in her wardrobe and then in the ground. Rachel's family knew something was wrong immediately. She did not come home that Monday night. Her father went to the tram stop to meet her, but she never arrived. They called her friends. No one knew where she was. The police were called that same evening and a missing person investigation began. Police retraced Rachel's last known steps. They talked to her dance friends. The friends mentioned the secret job and the $100. They mentioned Rachel getting on a tram with an older girl. Police work quickly focused on phone records. They saw the long calls between Caroline Robertson's number and the Barber home on the night before Rachel vanished. Detectives went to Caroline's apartment building. They knocked. There was no answer. They got a key from the building manager. The door was locked from the inside with a deadbolt. They called the fire brigade to climb through a window. Inside, they found Caroline Robertson lying on the floor. She appeared unconscious. Empty packets of her epilepsy medication were nearby. She was taken to the hospital. When she woke up, police were waiting to talk to her. The officer in charge asked her directly about Rachel. He asked if Rachel was dead. Caroline said yes. He asked if she was sure. She said she was sure. She told them she had buried Rachel on her father's farm. Her confession was calm. She showed no emotion. At that moment, the search for a missing girl became a murder investigation. The evidence gathered in Caroline's apartment removed all doubt. Police found the application form for Rachel's Barber's birth certificate. They found bags of clothing that matched Rachel's size and style, clothes that were not Caroline's. But the most telling evidence was in Caroline's own handwriting. Her journals were not just diaries. They were a step-by-step plan for murder and identity theft. Officers read pages describing how to drug someone, how to use a toxic cloth, and how to dispose of a body in an army bag. They read her notes about creating a new person named Jem Southall, a name using Rachel's mother's maiden name. The writing showed this was not a crime of sudden anger. It was a calculated project she had been thinking about for years. The police also went to the farm in Kilmore. Using Caroline's directions, they found the shallow grave. They recovered Rachel's body. An autopsy confirmed she had been strangled with a cord, just as Caroline described. Every piece of evidence fit together perfectly. The kind babysitter was in fact a meticulous planner of a horrific crime. Her motive was laid bare in the journals. She wanted Rachel's life. She wanted to erase the real Rachel and try to take her place. The fantasy was complete in her mind, but in reality, it left a grieving family and a community in shock. In the courtroom, Caroline Robertson pleaded guilty to murder. There was no trial. Psychiatrists who examined her agreed she was deeply disturbed. She had a severe personality disorder. But they also agreed she was not legally insane. She understood what she was doing was wrong. She had planned it carefully. The judge sentenced her to 20 years in prison. She would have to serve at least 14.5 years before she could ask for parole. For Rachel's parents, Elizabeth and Michael Barber, the legal process offered little comfort. Their daughter was gone. The person they had trusted had killed her. They had to live with that betrayal every day. They opposed Caroline's release when she became eligible for parole in 2015, but the parole board decided to let her out. Caroline Robertson was released from prison. She moved to a different part of the state. She has never publicly apologized to the Barber family. She has never shown any remorse. Elizabeth Barber has spoken about the depth of their grief. She said the pain is so far inside her that she cannot even cry anymore. She and her husband have chosen to forgive Caroline. They did not do this for Caroline's sake. They did it for their own peace. They did not want to live with hatred in their hearts. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. Rachel's absence is a permanent part of their lives. The story of Rachel Barber is a stark warning about hidden obsessions. It shows how a person can wear a perfect mask while nurturing terrible thoughts inside. Caroline presented herself as a friend. Rachel's tragedy reminds us that danger does not always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks familiar. Sometimes it smiles at you. For Rachel's family and friends, her memory is kept alive through their love. They remember the talented dancer, the loving sister, the young woman full of promise. Her life was cut short by a fantasy that should have never left the pages of a journal. The final facts are simple but haunting. I thank you all for coming with me on this deep dive. If you enjoyed this piece, do well to leave a thumbs up. May the gentle soul of Rachel continue to live on. Until next time, stay well and stay safe.